Hey, welcome to the Sip and Feast podcast.
That was exuberant.
That was too much, right?
No, that was good.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Sip and Feast podcast. Today we are going to talk about shrimp, all different types of shrimp. Shrimp that you can, different varieties, what you can do with it, how easy they are to cook with. And I hope you like shrimp because that's what this episode is about. Right, Tara?
That's right.
Tara does all the outlines, which helps greatly. She does so much. She even helps me with my appearance. She said I had a poppy seed in my teeth, so I just had to go up and get rid of it. So I just had a poppy seed bagel before I went on camera now.
Always a good idea to have a poppy seed bagel before you're going to be on camera.
That is right. Before we get into the topic of today's podcast, we're going to do food news. I love this segment. Tara, what do you have for food news for today?
Okay, so the first news story about food is something that I think is near and dear to many of those in our audience. And that is the news that Campbell's Soup Company is acquiring Sovos Brands, which is the company that owns Rao's. Campbell will be paying
Campbells
Soup Company will be acquiring this company for $2.7 billion. And Sovos Brands also owns Michelangelo's and Noosa, which is a yogurt company. I actually really like their yogurt. But it seems that Rao's fans are super concerned that Campbell's Soup is going to mess with their beloved jarred sauce. But from everything that I've gathered, Campbell's is promising that they're not going to touch the sauce at all.
Well, we will find out. Now, we did the taste test on all the sauces. If you recall, I'm sure you have seen that one. It has almost 1 million views on YouTube. It has some of the worst comments you will ever see in your life on a YouTube video. People were extremely offended that James and I didn't vote for Rao's as being the number one sauce. Actually, Victoria was our victor.
That's right.
Rao's does taste good. As far as Rao's the company and you loving it and thinking like Rao's, like the cook and at the Harlem location is making sauce for you, he's not and he never was. Yeah, that company, what's the name of it again? Sovos
Brands?
They've owned Rao's for a long time. And a lot of people in the comment section, Tara, were saying that they worked at the factory that made that sauce, but I think they said it made all the other sauces too at the factory, which to my understanding isn't too big of a surprise because it's not like every company has their own factories for making.
That's right.
I mean, a company can have 600 products. They can't make them all in-house. They have other companies do it for them. So that's the case with Rao's. They've been doing that. I have a feeling the formula and the taste, if you like it, will probably remain exactly the same. Do you think so?
I would think so. I mean, Campbell's Soup owns Prego, right? So, of course, they're going to want to differentiate between Prego, Rao's. I mean, I think a lot of times when a company, like a food company, acquires another food company, they do their best to try and keep it consistent because they know that there's so many fans out there that want to continue to consume that product the way that it is.
Campbell's probably wants to fill out their food line category. So they have low end, which is Prego. No offense if you like Prego. But Rao's is going to come in as their high end product. And they're definitely going to try to keep them differentiated. You know, all these jarred sauces I felt all of them were inferior to making one yourself. You know, you do it yourself. You're starting with just the raw ingredients. You're starting with a good can of tomatoes, and then you could put in whatever type of olive oil, very fresh garlic yourself. If you like onions, you know, you can really get that tasting exactly how you want. And then you can finish it with fresh basil if you desire. This is just hard to put in a jar and for it to stay good for possibly 5 years later when you're opening the thing. So I guess that's it about Rao's. Let's move on.
So the next topic that I thought was interesting was that a family in Michigan found a live frog in their triple washed organic spinach. So the frog they found was a Pacific tree frog, which is native to California. And the frog was alive when it was in the spinach. It was kind of the same color as the spinach, so camouflaged. The frog has since been relocated and is alive and well. The thing that I found interesting was that this company claims to triple wash their spinach. So that gives me pause because, well, if they triple washed it, how did the frog get in? Unless they did triple wash it and then during the packaging process, the frog hopped in. But how are frogs there in the factory?
Somebody could have just put a frog in there. Okay.
Like a disgruntled employee?
A disgruntled employee. A frog could have jumped in before it got sealed up because the plastic seals these containers up. But I assume somebody could also plant one in if they wanted to. And I'll just tell you, frogs do sometimes end up in places you don't think they do. Do you recall in Minnesota when we were moving out of our house that we lived in for 3 years, there was a frog in the middle of James's bedroom?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
How did that get there?
I forgot about that for a while.
How did it get there?
I don't know.
And this was on the second floor.
I forgot about that frog.
That's right.
Yeah.
So who knows what happened here? I came across a story. I thought it was worth sharing with you.
So let me ask you a question then, because I've always washed even stuff that says triple washed until recently when I found something that was grown in a hothouse that seemed like it was really clean and maybe didn't need to be washed again on top of the company's triple washing. So I've been kind of skipping that. I think I'm going back to washing everything again.
Yeah, it can't hurt. I mean, we did speak about this in the produce episode, right? It's probably not a bad idea, get a good salad spinner and just make it a part of your routine. I was saying how it's a little silly, ridiculous to wash an avocado or a lemon. No, lettuce that you're going to consume and you're not cooking, I would definitely wash that again.
Yeah.
I would. If you want to make a good salad, so that was spinach, right? Mm-hmm. So you do a spinach salad, you would still you gotta really dry that off, or once your salad gets soggy, then not so good.
Yeah. The next thing I thought was interesting or stupid is another TikTok trend, and it's eating 3 large carrots a day so that you consume enough beta carotene to actually change your skin color and give yourself an orange glow. What do you think of that?
I think TikTok represents it's the bleeding edge of stupidity. Like, it's where if you want to get stupid, you can get stupid all day long. Like, you can watch people jump across buildings. You can watch them climb a mountain without, having a strap on them. You can do, some of the stuff is just downright insane. But as far as eating carrots, that's not going to be a bad thing. I mean, if they eat too many carrots, they eat too many carrots.
Yeah, the only thing that I could find that it could be bad is that having too much beta carotene could interfere with absorption of other minerals. So it's not bad to have 3 carrots a day. But I have heard of when babies start first having solid food, one of the things that parents will give their baby is those mashed up carrots.
Yeah.
So I've heard of babies, because they're so tiny, having to go to the doctor because they turned orange.
Yeah.
From having too many carrots, which again, it's not a concern.
I had no idea that did that. I mean, I know on TikTok, it's predominantly they have the people using, which is really bad for you, this product called melanotan. So melanotan you inject into your body. It's actually, it wasn't even invented to get tan, but it was such a good product that it's used off-label and is called melanotan now.
I think I've heard of it. I just didn't know what it was.
Super tan.
Okay.
Like, it will turn you can get as tan. You just keep injecting more of it, and I mean, they say it increases your freckles and moles. Moles that you don't even have, they come out, and then people are like, well, I stopped using it and they went away. But yeah, you're fooling around with the molecular, your actual DNA itself.
Oh, that's scary.
So there's pictures, and it's all over TikTok of people going from pale white, like Nordic, to super tan.
Yeah. No, if it's going to mess with the DNA, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So I think carrots is probably the better alternative.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
The last one I wanted to talk about was Beyond Meat. Okay. Beyond Meat stock. Now, this happened last week. So this happened on 8/8 when they reported earnings. Stock tumbled last Tuesday's trading after they reported weak sales. They cut their full year revenue forecast and walked back their goals of becoming cash flow positive in the second half of 2023. It's crazy. You could be like one of these companies and you cannot be cash flow positive really forever. As long as you have venture capital funding and everything, you'll continue to move. And I don't, they don't need that. They're a publicly traded company now. But the CEO Brown, he blames special interest groups for seeding fear and doubt around Beyond's ingredients and manufacturing processes. I thought that was interesting, Tara.
Yeah. Have you ever had Beyond Meat? Because I haven't.
I haven't, and I've wanted to try it for a long time. I just wonder if they're kind of like tapping out the amount of people that are going to have it. Doesn't Burger King sell it or McDonald's?
Yeah,
or?
I think it's Burger King. I know they sell Beyond Meat at Whole Foods, and I think I've seen it at other grocery stores. And I even think Starbucks for a while had a Beyond Meat sausage breakfast sandwich, but I don't think they have it anymore.
I think they had like viral marketing initially where they got it, where they created artificial demand. Like companies are experts at this. Nintendo does it when they release their new system. Like they purposely don't produce enough of them.
Right.
So it's, I'm sure Sony engages in it too with the PlayStation. But yeah, Beyond Meat was there. And I remember that was the time when the marketing was happening. And I'm susceptible to marketing just like you are. We all are very susceptible to this type of marketing. And I really wanted to try it. And then I couldn't try it. Now that I can try it and it's available everywhere, I don't really care to try it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird thing.
That's true.
But I do think that as far as he's saying that, company like they're having bad PR or some people are trying to take them down or whatnot, you would think that at some point, not all vegetarians and vegans want to just have a burger or say like a vegan steak, because a steak is meat. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should maybe name it a different thing.
I do wonder how many vegetarians and vegans, and if you're listening, send us a message and let us know. But the vegans that I know, they don't really want something that reminds them of meat because it's like consuming flesh, which they don't enjoy.
And doesn't it have like fake red blood?
Some of it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even blood though. It's supposed to be the myoglobin.
Yeah. If that's you might be mispronouncing that or
I probably
something
am.
like that.
I am.
But there are places like the place that we lived by when we lived in Minnesota, the Herbivorous Butcher. Everything that they had there was a replica of meat. Like they had vegan prosciutto and vegan this, vegan that. But I just wonder, if you're a vegan, do you really want to eat stuff that reminds you of meat, or do you just want to eat some like really tasty vegan food? When
I lived in the city, this was a long time ago, there was this really good vegan place. Do you remember that place?
Yes.
What was the name of it?
Candle Cafe?
I can't remember the name of it. You might be right. But if they served food that was 100% vegan and it wasn't trying to be something that it wasn't. They didn't call it burger or
it was really
steak on
good.
the menu. The food was really good. And this is over 20 years ago. So it wasn't too popular to be a vegan back then. We sure as heck weren't vegans, and I've never been a vegan in my life, but I always want to try good food. And it doesn't matter that this is beef or this is pork or this is chicken or this is a bunch of vegetables. I just want it to taste good.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that place, it was good.
Yeah.
Anyway, that is enough of food news. Let's move on to today's topic of shrimp. Who doesn't like shrimp? Well, vegans don't like shrimp.
What I thought would be helpful is for you to talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old or like I'm an alien from another planet. I've never seen shrimp before. I've never had it. I've never cooked with it. And I think it would be really helpful for you to kind of just start from the very beginning and the basics about shrimp.
Okay.
And one of those areas to start with is shrimp sizes.
Let's just back up right before the sizes. Shrimp are really easy to make. If you're a novice cook and you're trying to maybe get out of that pasta box, or you have like 5 dishes you can make and you want to expand quickly, move into shrimp. Because you can find shrimp, and we'll talk about it in a minute, that are, not too expensive and that are easy to prepare. So Tara asked about the sizes of the shrimp. You'll either see them listed one of 2 ways. It'll be like 12-16. That means 12 to 16 per pound. Or it'll say something like U16. That means 16 or under per pound. So the lower the number, 16 is a is a big shrimp. So if you see U16, that's a big shrimp. You can't trust jumbo, extra large, colossus, anything like that. Often prawns are really shrimp and shrimps are really prawns. It's really just what the seller, there's not really anything regulating any of this, but what you can always go by and is 100% accurate is those numbers.
Is the U count. Yeah, and actually I found a chart that kind of illustrates which numbers per pound correlate to the description size. So like a colossal shrimp which is the largest, would be fewer than 15 per pound, whereas a jumbo shrimp would fall into that 16 to 25 category. And then it goes down from there, like large, medium, small. A small would be 51 or greater.
We have 410 recipes on our site. We put up 2 to 3 a week. So, if you're listening to this a couple months from now, there'll probably be 500 recipes on the site. There's a lot of shrimp recipes. There's a lot of recipes, period, that aren't brought up to the standards that we would like. Current standards, our standards, continue to improve. So I would, in order to help people in the beginning, I would be writing jumbo shrimp or extra large shrimp. And, what we just spoke about, what the hell, that doesn't mean anything. It's not a universal figure. It's not a universal naming system. So now every time we write it, we will always just include the U count, and that's how I would buy them. And you will notice that the larger the shrimp, so the lower that U count, the much more expensive they get.
That's right.
But that's not the only thing that makes them expensive or cheap. It's also the variety of shrimp.
So once you've determined the size of the shrimp, like if you're, like you said, a novice cook, you're reading the recipe says use, jumbo shrimp or whatever. Now that you know a jumbo shrimp is like the 16 to 25 count, you go to the store. Are you better off getting frozen shrimp or fresh shrimp?
In my opinion, you're almost always better off getting frozen shrimp. Now, if you live by the Fulton Market, if you live near a boat in Louisiana, it's a different story. Now, a lot of boats, commercial boaters, they will actually flash freeze these on the boat. So even if you do live near there, sometimes they come in, they bring them in, they're already frozen. Everybody's watched like the Discovery show, Deadliest Catch. I mean, that it deals with king crabs, but you see what they do there. How you see how it works. But yeah, for the most part, I would say 99%, unless you own a restaurant and it doesn't. It also matters what type of restaurant you own. If you own a fancy restaurant, you're going to have different distributors coming to you with the best product. Like if you own a sushi restaurant, you're going to have some really good people pulling up because they know you have to sell the freshest stuff. But if you own a TGI Fridays, it's not the same thing. I would say for you as a consumer and for me, we should be buying frozen shrimp. Yeah,
I would agree. And actually all the research I kind of did on this leading up to this, that's the consensus.
Okay.
Was that you should be buying frozen shrimp. The other thing that I found is just a little tip, and that's if you're looking through bags of frozen shrimp, if you see freezer burn, you might want to skip over that bag, because what that means is that the shrimp have started to partially thaw before being refrozen, which can be bad for its texture and flavor. I don't think it's dangerous to consume. That's not what it said. It said it would affect the flavor and texture.
Just so you know, when you go to, and I'm just going to use Whole Foods as an example, because a lot of people, rightfully or wrongfully, we associate Whole Foods with like the pinnacle of a shopping experience. And I think there's a Whole Foods in every state. There's probably multiples. So we're all have a better chance of being familiar with this place. And you go by their seafood section, and you'll see a lot of shrimp that are thawed. And you think to yourself, those are fresh shrimp. They're not fresh shrimp. They were previously frozen, and they thawed them, and they sell them to you like that. If you don't believe me, just ask them. There will occasionally be a situation where they will come in fresh. And that could be ones that have the heads on, full body, legs, everything, but they are hard to buy, and they will go bad very quickly when they have the head on. They will go bad quick. They will get they'll start to spoil even quicker with the heads on. So I've seen recently Costco has a big bag with the heads on frozen. And they look really good.
Yeah.
But I think they're like $25 a pound.
Okay. I think,
And you have to buy like a 5-pound bag of them. So it's like $130 for the shrimp.
yeah. I think it was, I was trying to remember where I read this, and I think it was Serious Eats that they recommend buying the frozen shrimp with the heads removed, but with the shells still on. That they said that would be your best bet.
Yeah, they're probably right. I will say I find a lot of things, not a lot, but I find things every once in a while that's wrong on Serious Eats. I think Serious Eats' problem that they suffered, I believe the site used to be a lot better years ago. Now they're owned by some big company. I just think they put out so much content that it's not, sometimes I'll find something, I'll be like, that is completely wrong. Like I saw that article that you're talking about on shrimp. It was just so, what's the right word? Superfluous? Like it was just too much information. Like almost meant to confuse you, I think.
Oh.
How did you leave that article thinking that were you better off or worse off after reading that article?
I think it was a little bit helpful. It was long, but I mean, I think that's what they wanted it to be.
That's the problem with writing content these days, and we're faced with this when we write our recipe posts. Longer is not always better. The
true.
art of being succinct has been put on steroids now with TikTok. You're talking TikTok before. You'll see the comments. We get them on our YouTube videos all the time. They're like, just give me the summation. It's an 8-minute video, and they want it. They're like, this is 7 minutes and 55 seconds too long. It's like, well, you're not going to learn to cook from in a 5-second TikTok, but that's kind of what people are doing now. And even Google itself is trying to return search results on page 1 of Google that are more succinct and to the point. So it's a hard thing. Like, what do you leave in? What do you? You can't put a novel every time.
Yeah,
you just can't do that.
So true. So Jim, I bought my frozen shrimp at the grocery store. I'm going home. I'm going to start cooking right away. What can I do to thaw those shrimp?
I mean, safest way is just to put them in a colander, leave them in the fridge overnight. I just put plastic over it so the whole fridge doesn't smell like shrimp. You could also speed thaw them under cold water. But right. It's always better to do it the night before. Yeah. If you do speed thaw them, whichever way you do it, you got to make sure that they are completely thawed, and then you really want to dry them off well before you start working with them. Though it doesn't matter if you're putting your shrimp into like gumbo, jambalaya, tom kha, or any soup. That's a different dynamic.
Once it's thawed, you have a trick that you use in almost every shrimp recipe. And what is that?
So I use baking soda. In the videos, people always say, they're like, what are you doing with that baking soda? You're going to ruin it. They always want to know. So I always say, just look at Serious Eats, because they have an article. Again, they have an article on everything. They have an article on how to use a toothbrush. They have an article on everything. But that's not where I learned it from. I actually learned it from, I had a friend who owned multiple Chinese restaurants. So he said they did it, but I think every Chinese restaurant has been doing this forever. So as far as like what it technically does, you will find online, and you will find even in that Serious Eats article, and I feel like every other source on the internet is copying what they wrote. It will still be ambiguous. They don't have a scientist. They don't have anybody. But they tell you, and I wrote it down here, they tell you, this is from Food and Wine. They say, alkaline baking soda slightly alters the pH of the shrimp, making them as plump and succulent as lobster and resistant to overcooking. Well, I kind of agree with that. I think that's right. Now, that's not a scientific explanation for it. The only bit of science is saying alkaline baking soda slightly alters. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there is science to this. Mm-hmm. It will not hurt your shrimp. Just don't use a lot of it.
What is the ratio?
You only need a quarter teaspoon or a half a teaspoon per pound of shrimp. Honestly, I've done both. I've even done up to 3/4. It doesn't impart any taste. If you use too much baking soda, it will have a slightly salty, almost metallic taste to it. But you have to really you have to use a lot of it. Mm-hmm. All you do is you mix it with your shrimp, 15 minutes. You can just cover it. You can put it in the fridge if you want, but you don't have to. And then when you're ready to do your shrimp, you can pat it dry, try to remove some of it, but you don't have to do that either. You can just cook with it.
Yeah, I like that tip. And it seems a lot of the folks that comment on the website who have tried it have thanked you for it.
They say that,
helpful.
but it could be placebo. They just could have gotten good shrimp, and it might have worked. It's again, unless you're doing like a real science, which there is no real science over here, and on most sites there's not real science. Real science is boring. You'd have to like design. Remember that in school, like how you actually do a real experiment. Mm-hmm. You would need a lot of shrimp for that.
We had to do. We did a food. Well, we didn't do it. Our daughter did it when she was in 5th grade for a science fair. Do you remember that? That was actually a food-related science fair experiment.
Yep.
Where we tested if eating a hot pepper elevates the temperature in your mouth. And we did it with one of those, what are those? The thermometers that you like, the laser thermometers. What are those called?
Yeah, which those are not accurate to begin with. Those are infrared.
Yeah,
I use it for the pizza oven, to tell me like I put it on the steel.
Yeah. So we did that.
That was cute.
That was kind of fun. Do you want to talk about different types of shrimp?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of types of shrimp, and I don't really buy too many different types just because the more obscure types are a lot more expensive. I actually have most of the really like different types I have at restaurants. Like we just had really unique one the other night.
Mm-hmm,
ruby red, ruby red shrimp.
Royal red
or ruby red. They called them ruby red there. They tasted like very shrimpy, like extremely. I mean, really seafoody, and the texture was closer to like bay scallop or fish. Mm-hmm. Very good. The shrimp I buy from the store do not taste like that.
Yeah, they were really good, and I don't know because I didn't ask the chef, but I would imagine that he probably made a shrimp stock.
Oh yeah,
for that sauce.
Yeah, he probably had
because
the heads.
It was very shrimpy.
Yeah, he probably had the heads and the shell and the legs, everything, and he probably made a beautiful stock with that. And then when he was making his sauce, probably did the garlic, the onion, a little bit of wine, and the stock, reduced that to like ultra shrimpy levels before adding the tomato in. What he does, and this is that place Trattoria that we spoke about in the past. It's in my opinion, it's the best Italian restaurant anywhere near where we live. He will always chop the shrimp into like little pieces for the pasta, which is really nice for the bite size, especially if you don't like tails, which we get a lot of comments about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually we do have a listener question about that, so
we'll hold that
to the end. I picked that because it pairs really well with this episode, so I don't want to get ahead of us with the question. So all right, so obviously royal red or ruby red, whatever the shrimp type is that we had the other night, is hard to come by.
Same thing for rock shrimp are hard to come by too, and expensive.
Actually, now that you mentioned rock shrimp, I did so much research on shrimp. I actually learned a lot about shrimp. Did you know that rock shrimp used to be considered a trash fish, meaning when the fishermen would catch it, they would throw it back? Do you know why?
Probably something to do with it was too hard to eat.
The shells were too hard to remove. In the 1960s, a fisherman invented a device that would allow you to easily split rock shrimp shells. But apparently, and I think I've had them before at a few different restaurants.
We've had it in his place. He served it.
That's right.
Yeah.
We've had it at restaurants. I've never made them at home because I've
never even seen them in the store. Yeah.
But apparently they're very sweet and they have a flavor that's similar to spiny lobster or Dungeness crab.
They're delicious. I remember he did a dish with thin slices of Calabrian peppers, like fresh ones, and we had this when we were sitting outside, so it was like a year or two ago.
Yeah, that's right.
It was so good. But yeah, I'm kind of like, I normally buy the shrimp from Costco that are predominantly, it'll say on the bag, they're a product of Thailand or Vietnam or China. They're white shrimp, they're called. And they don't have, I would say, they don't have the qualities of the shrimp we were just talking about. Mm-hmm. But they're good too, and they're easy to prepare, and they're inexpensive. At Costco, for I think U25, so it's like $25 per pound. Again, they already come peeled and deveined. And remember, deveining means the intestinal tract is removed. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's what it means when it says it on the bag.
Yeah, which actually that is you can eat that.
Yeah.
It is safe to eat.
Yeah, a lot of Chinese restaurants don't do that.
Yeah, like the peel and eat shrimp that you'll get if you go to a Chinese buffet.
Yeah.
They don't devein it because it's still peeled.
They don't even devein it when they do that delicious, that mayo one that they do with the honey walnuts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that is like the best dish. Honey walnut shrimp from a Chinese restaurant. They do it. They fry the shrimp in. First of all, they butterfly them. So maybe they do have to devein it for that. But they butterfly them, so they're like wide open, and then they coat them in probably like a rice flour mixture and fry them, and they get like crunchy almost. And then there's these honey walnuts that have a ton of sugar and honey, and then they make this mayo dressing. I feel like it's mayo based,
it is,
which is odd because it's a Chinese restaurant. But this is American Chinese we're talking about here. And there's probably they probably put some cooking wine or something. I don't know, but it's so good and it looks simple. I would love to do that.
So good.
Should do a YouTube video for that.
Yeah.
And start making Chinese.
The place that had the best was that buffet that used to be in Huntington on Long Island. East Buffet. It's not there anymore.
No, they had so many problems with workers' rights abuse. Who knows what they were doing. Their food was excellent. But that place was not run properly. The waiters would tell you, they would be like, "Don't give me a tip. Can you give it to me in cash?" So that's never a good sign, know.
The other type of shrimp that I'm usually able to find at Whole Foods, and we have gotten it a few times, is the Gulf shrimp, the pink Gulf shrimp.
Pink shrimp, yeah.
But that's always frozen.
I've seen them fresh. Well, they're not fresh. I've seen them thawed and on the counter in Whole Foods. They're good.
Yeah,
they're good. They have they're more potent. I think they have a more. I don't know. It's not really helping you by saying more shrimpy taste. I don't know. I find that the white ones don't have that much of a taste.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So it does. So if you'll allow me to read something that I did find out. And it's not necessarily the pink Gulf shrimp. It's really the brown Gulf shrimp. They prefer the warmer water where they have there's more vegetation in the water there. So that's kind of what the brown Gulf shrimp will feast on. And the vegetation that they're eating contains a compound known as bromophenol. Okay. So the brown ones will have more of that ocean umami flavor because of what they're eating. Whereas the pink and the white Gulf shrimp, they prefer to go down towards the bottom where it's sandy and there's not as much of that vegetation down there. So they're eating other stuff. So they're slightly less potent than the brown Gulf shrimp.
We're not an expert on these type of shrimps and everything. And I don't know anybody who really is, unless you bring on somebody who owns a seafood market. But what I am pretty good at is knowing good dishes.
Okay, so speaking of you knowing which shrimp dishes to make and being an expert.
I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert on anything. Remember, we already spoke about that. I am not a chef. Oh, somebody told me in the comments, they said, Guy Fieri is a chef. He was trained at UNLV, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to address that. Listen, if I go to any school, I'm not anything, okay? I'm just trained there. He didn't work in these places. He's been on TV forever, all right? And not even cooking. So I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but please, just because he went to culinary school like Bobby Flay did, they are not the same type of chef.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Bobby Flay is...
You're not equal because you come out of culinary school with Gordon Ramsay.
Right.
Like that's the thing. Like if my daughter goes to culinary school, which she's going to, I can guarantee you she won't be as good of a cook as me. Not for a while. It'll still take her years to catch up. And that's not me. That's not arrogance on my part. It's just the truth. I've been cooking for 30-something years. She goes to culinary school for a year. She's not going to be better than me. I mean, do you agree with that? Or is that an arrogant statement?
I think that credentials don't always equal expertise. In fact, most of the time, credentials do not equal expertise.
Yeah, it's called you have credentials. It's credentialitis.
Yeah.
Like if I go to law school, medical school, and pass the accounting exam and whatever other test, That doesn't make me an expert in all those. I become an expert when I then do those as my life's
Once you've
work.
practiced.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, moving on.
Okay. So
Sorry.
What are some of your favorite recipes to make with shrimp?
And it's funny, like I'm going to say ones that aren't on the website yet, but one is coming. I've had the recipe written up for months now. I just haven't gotten around to doing it, which is shrimp parm. So yeah, anytime you fry shrimp, it's amazing. Just as we were talking about the Chinese version with the mayo and walnuts, that is phenomenal. Get it if you live near a Chinese place that makes it. The same thing, shrimp parm is amazing, and it's a very unorthodox, un-Italian, but very Italian-American dish, and it's really good. So yeah, you're mixing cheese, multiple cheeses, with shrimp.
Yeah, which is a no-no for
big no-no,
purist Italians.
Big no-no. And another great one that you can do, and this is kind of a variation. So around here, all in Long Island and the city and the surrounding area, a lot of more of the old school Italian restaurants will do calamari arrabbiata. And the way they do it is they deep fry the calamari and they make a thicker sauce made with mostly tomato paste and a lot of cherry peppers. And then when that calamari comes out of the oil and it drains, they take a little bit of that sauce, they put it on and they toss it, and then they throw like basil leaves in there. And it is phenomenal, but you got to eat it right away because you're putting wet sauce on the crispy calamari and you want to keep it crispy yet kind of saturated with the sauce at the same time. So it's not a dish really that does well taking home or door dashing.
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be a good idea. So another way to do it would be if you don't want to do the calamari, do shrimp. Same exact thing.
It's delicious like that. Also non-Italian food, but you did make a gumbo. You did put shrimp in that, even though I think shrimp is not traditionally in gumbo.
It's in Creole. It's not in Cajun.
That's right. It's in a Creole gumbo, not a Cajun gumbo. But that, I think, is one of my favorite recipes that you use shrimp.
And those are an example where you don't have to dry them off or anything. You just put them right in your gumbo before you serve it. You only have to put them in like 3 minutes before, and the hot liquid will cook the shrimp.
Yeah.
You got to do it quick. You don't want to leave them in too long, but it's so good. And I don't think we're going to get to this at all, but never shortcut by using pre-cooked shrimp for any dish. I know I didn't bring it up today, and we do get questions about it, so I figured let me just jump in here because I know some of you might be thinking for that gumbo, I could just use the pre-cooked. Just do yourself a favor. Don't use pre-cooked shrimp. I know they sell it. I don't know why they sell it. They must sell it because people buy it, but you're not going to have anywhere near as good of results by using that product.
Yeah. And speaking of pre-cooked shrimp, I would also say a lot of people buy like those rings, shrimp cocktail,
waterlogged,
and they're so waterlogged and they're like kind of just limp. They're not good anymore. It's so easy to make shrimp cocktail.
Yeah, a couple minutes. Yeah.
It's so much better.
Big shrimp. We got a recipe for shrimp cocktail on the site. It's, you're just cooking the shrimp for like 2 minutes in hot water. I make like a little bit of a stock for it, but you could just boil it straight in water and get a good cocktail sauce.
It's so good.
Lemons.
So good. It's like it tastes like the shrimp cocktail you would get in a restaurant.
In a steakhouse. Like steakhouses always have the best shrimp cocktail. You go to Peter Luger, you go to your favorite steakhouse, whatever it is. They're using the U12 shrimp. They are massive and they look beautiful when you get the crushed ice in like the glass and you put them around there.
Yeah.
That's a good one for a dinner. Like if you're going to do a fancy dinner for your date, that would be something that I would put on to impress. And we're thinking about doing a full episode on that. So if you're interested in that topic, leave it in the comments because we will probably do that one sooner than later.
I think that would be a fun one to do.
Yeah, because I got so many ideas. I know the normal one is always a steak, but there's plenty of other ones that are great too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One of the most iconic Italian-American shrimp dishes is shrimp scampi.
Absolutely. And
that's easy to make.
Very.
Right?
That's an under 30. We talked about that in last week's episode, the doable 30-minute meals, and that is one of them.
Yeah. And we also have the shrimp scampi rolls.
Yes.
It's similar to a lobster roll.
Yes.
Which those are just so good.
And I said it in the video. I borrowed that idea from DJ's Clam Shack, which is a local place here, but they have multiple locations. I actually think they have a couple locations in Florida too. They serve great seafood. They're kind of like that like the shack type places you'll see on the side of the road and like a beach community that have all the fried seafood.
Yeah. And actually, we just went there the other night, and they had one of my favorite shrimp dishes ever, which is coconut shrimp.
That's what I actually got for my dinner.
Because for me, I like anything with coconut. And when you just pair coconut with shrimp, and then they give you that Thai chili sauce.
You know what?
Man,
we got to put that
good.
one. We got to do that one on the site too. We're sticking to the Italian American theme for the most part on the site. But as the site gets bigger and bigger, as I said before, there's 410 recipes there. At some point, maybe it's at number 700, we will have probably gone through most of the recipes that you would think of, and we will venture off into more stuff. And because I love, and Tara, we love eating everything. We do.
Yep. Yeah. Are there any other shrimp dishes you want to talk about?
Well, the lemon garlic shrimp pasta is a really simple one. It's essentially like a shrimp scampi mixed with linguine. Shrimp fra diavolo is it's everywhere in this area of the country. Every place makes it. That's a spicy shrimp dish.
Shrimp francese.
Shrimp francese. This is probably the most recent shrimp dish on the site. I butterflied the shrimp, and francese means in the French style, though it's an Italian-American dish. Normally it's done with chicken, but by butterflying large shrimp, you dip it in flour first and an egg, and then you fry it in butter and a little bit of olive oil and butter. Only for a couple of minutes, you take those shrimp out, put them on paper towels to rest, and then you make your delicious lemon francese sauce. And all you do then is add that shrimp back in and toss. Mm-hmm. It looks beautiful, and it tastes amazing.
That's right.
Yep. Make that one. That's a good one to make.
It is.
Yeah. We're moving on to what's coming up this week for Sip and Feast videos and recipes on the website.
The video that we'll be putting out on Thursday will be riso al forno. And then the 2 recipes we'll be adding to the website this coming week will be eggplant parm, Neapolitan style. How do you make that, Jim?
I'm sure there's people in Naples that don't make it exactly this way, but from my research, it's kind of done this way. It's actually kind of done similar to francese again. So you're taking the eggplant slices, they go in flour, pat off the flour. You just want a very thin coating, and then you dip into a mixture that is made up of eggs, pecorino romano, and parsley, and a little bit. I put black pepper in there. You could put a tiny bit of salt, but you don't really need it. Basically, an egg and cheese mixture, and then you're frying in olive oil. And then you're doing your standard eggplant parm with mozzarella, more cheese, basil, and sauce on each level.
Delicious.
Yeah,
Delicious.
It's my favorite way to do it. Though I do like the breadcrumb one is more of the Americanized one, and then we also have a Sicilian one on the site, which is. And I don't know if this is how they all do it in Sicily either, but that one is just no coating at all. It's just fried in olive oil, kind of how pasta alla norma is done.
That's my favorite way to have it, because I feel like you can taste the eggplant even better when there's no breading on it.
I get that, and it is really good that way. I think the coating, whether it's the way, the egg and cheese one or basically the breadcrumb one is egg, cheese, flour, egg, cheese, and breadcrumbs. So it has like the thickest coating. I think those ways, kind of when you're doing it in the big baking dish with the sauce, it kind of all goes together. Like it absorbs it.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the final recipe that will be going out next week will be the zucchini bread with cream cheese frosting.
Okay, so the zucchini bread, delicious. And that one and the riso al forno, remember the riso al forno, that means baked rice. That one is, I put both of them up. When I make these dishes, I always put them up on Instagram in story form, let you know what we're working on. And there were a ton of comments about both of those. So people are anxious for both of these. The zucchini is something that you have a ton of this time, whether you're growing it yourself or a farmer's market, but you can make the zucchini bread all year long. Tara made it. She designed this whole recipe, and the cream cheese frosting is just insane. During that week, we also made a pumpkin bread, chocolate chip pumpkin bread, which we won't publish that yet. And we were putting the cream cheese on top mixture on top of that too.
Yeah, so good.
And then the riso al forno was just, I did it one time. I did it for the site, just for the website, which it's already there if you want to see it. So you don't have to wait for the video. Tara and the kids were just like, you have to make a video for this one now. And then people were asking about it. So that was like a change of plans. Normally we're pretty good about having everything planned way ahead of time, but sometimes you got to call an audible, and this is a case that it's worth it. So it's a meat sauce, And then you're using arborio rice, you're baking it all together, just as how you would do like a baked ziti or something. And this is just one way to do it.
It has peas.
And peas. The cheese that it uses is scamorza, which is just amazing. So this is kind of has a Sicilian bent, though scamorza is not a Sicilian cheese. I think it's a Calabrian cheese. Needless to say, it's a Southern Italian. Everything I make pretty much is Southern Italian food that's Americanized. But you can also, I've seen dishes for riso al forno done with just zucchini and ham, like kind of a white sauce with a lot of cheese. I've seen it done with eggplant pieces and like red bell pepper, which I think is kind of what my grandma used to do when she used to make something like this. I think you'll like it.
I think so too. Let's move on to the questions.
I love the questions. Hope you like the questions too. Hope I'm answering your question today.
So I actually have 2 questions from the same person, Christine from Nova Scotia. So the first one is related to shrimp, which is why I selected this question. So Christine is wondering why in almost every shrimp recipe she sees that the tails are always left on during cooking. Is it supposed to add more flavor? She prefers to pinch them off before she cooks them because she finds that it kind of makes a mess. So this is a question we get all the time, or not even a question. A lot of people just comment on how we shouldn't leave the tails on the shrimp. It's not a pleasant experience for the person eating the food. Why do you leave the tails on the shrimp? And do you find that it impedes your ability to enjoy the dish?
So thanks for the question, Christine. I will tell you my opinion. I think it's right, but it is just, I didn't research this. I don't know the question. I didn't know this question. I don't know the questions. Tara has them written down. I think that restaurants would always use the shrimp for 2 reasons in like say a pasta dish.
You mean use the tails?
Use the tails. I think that it bulks up the dish, so it's a little bigger. I think it's quicker for the cooks. It does give a little bit of flavor, but I don't think that's the main reason. I think it's more just to show that you're getting this much shrimp and these shrimp are big. So if you remove the tails and then the shrimp will look about half the size. And so I think that's probably the reason. I just do it out of habit too. I don't mind it, but I have learned from, especially the restaurant I was speaking about before, how almost always he removes the tails and he's using those tails and everything to make a stock. And furthermore, he cuts those shrimp into pieces, which is a really nice experience biting into the dish because you're getting like kind of like if he does it with rigatoni or whatnot, every piece is roughly the same size, bite-sized piece. Mm-hmm. So I would say, Christine, if you want to do it, definitely do it. If you do have a lot of shells and you buy shrimp that have, the shells, the tails and the shells, and, you get the heads, I would save all that and I would make a stock. If you don't have heads and you just have the tails and the shells, I have bags in my freezer that I do it and I kind of like add to them. And then when I get enough, then it's worth it to make a stock. And I haven't done any of this in my videos. We're considering doing more advanced techniques, maybe for a course or for Patreon or something else, because most of the YouTube audience doesn't want that type of stuff. I know that. And especially for how we've gone the whole time. I can't just like flip a switch. In my own personal cooking, I do a lot of stuff like that. So it will be nice to, I think, expand the things. And that'll probably coincide when we have like more of a test kitchen, like a bigger commercial space where we can do a lot more experimental type cooking.
That's a good answer. So Christine's other question, she said that she thinks it could kind of like fall under the food myths episode, but she wanted to know your thoughts on recipes that call for ingredients to be at room temperature. So she said she understands why some ingredients like butter or cream cheese would need to be because they're softer and easier to work with, especially for baking. But when it asks for eggs or yogurt or other things to be at room temperature, it doesn't make much sense. What do you think of that?
I mean, it does make sense for baking, I think, even with eggs at room temperature.
For when it comes to baking, if a recipe says eggs room temperature, the creator of that recipe definitely did that for a reason.
Yeah.
It allows everything to come together more easily.
More evenly.
Yep.
I don't think it's always necessary, Christine, but I think that if the recipe creator specifies it, I would follow it first if you get the results that he got or she got in that recipe, say like they have a website and they have pictures, or better, they have videos like we do. That's why we do videos, because when people say this guy doesn't know what he's doing, I always like to just kind of show it that way. I think that's the best way to go about it. But I would follow that creator's recipe exactly. You get the results you want, then change that one thing on the next time. And if you don't get the results, then you know that they wrote the recipe like that for a reason. You know, one of the best books that people always cite for any questions like this is it's like made by Harold and McGee. It's like a Bible on cooking techniques, and I think it's like the book that's used in culinary schools a lot. So again, sometimes things are just old wives' tales, and they're not necessary, and you'll find this out. And a lot of times, you know, you find these out through your own cooking. But it might indeed be the case that you should listen.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, from our perspective as recipe creators, I would think that if the person is specifying that they're doing it for a reason, they're not just gonna like haphazardly. But I do think it depends on the recipe. You know, I know, Christine, you mentioned yogurt. I don't know what recipe you're referring to that calls for yogurt at room temperature, but
so if you're adding yogurt to a hot dish, if you take cold and you add to hot, you can then curdle it. So a lot of times you would temper something like that, which is done in Indian cooking when they're adding yogurt. That doesn't seem to be what she's describing, though. Yeah. So sometimes you just got to learn for yourself. Like one thing that always amazes people is when I take cream, heavy cream, which in America is like 33 or I think 35% fat, and I add it to my hot sauce I'm making. Say I'm making alla vodka, and I just add it in. They're like, how did that not curdle? Well, because you'll see most recipes will tell you that it will curdle and you have to temper it. The recipe writer or person is not telling you correct, or they're not giving you correct information. If you use half and half, then it will do that. If you use milk, it will 100% do it. But the heavy cream in America that's sold, it's not going to do that. So
it has enough fat.
It has enough fat.
To prevent
you
that
learn
from
this
happening.
you learn stuff like this on your own. And I'm telling you, this is like 99% of recipes, even when they add heavy cream. Because I'm just thinking they don't use it enough and they don't know. Like maybe in their own house, they're always using half and half. So they think, oh, well, the heavy cream's going to do it too. It's not. It's not. It's never happened to me. Yeah. I'm so confident I make the videos. I don't have like backup stuff going on. I know it's not going to happen. You know, sometimes I do need backup stuff. Remember that time when I ruined the mascarpone for the tiramisu?
But a lot of times, well, that wasn't your fault.
Oh, I didn't ruin it.
Just
it was
spoiled.
Ruined. Yeah.
That's why I think a lot of times we do need to have backup ingredients, because if we're in the middle of filming, it's really hard for me to like quickly run out to the store and get a replacement item.
Backup eggplants are important. Now I have all the eggplant outside in the garden, but once that's done, which will be a few weeks from now, eggplant is always a crapshoot. Sometimes it looks perfect. You cut it open, it's completely bad.
Yeah. Okay, last question. This is from Jane. Jane says when she was in Florence, Italy last fall, she had a green tomato sauce pasta that was absolutely incredible. It was silky smooth and so good. She tried to replicate it at home and still had her green tomatoes around. She used a simple pomodoro recipe, but just couldn't get there. Huh. Have you ever had or made that pasta? And do you have any hints for her?
So Jane, I don't know that one. That sounds amazing though. I know Florence that's like really far up.
It's I think it's in the middle.
The middle, okay.
Yeah, it's Tuscany.
Tuscany. They do things very differently there, like, which I like. It's nothing like the food that I make, which is the Southern Italian stuff. Poposo is from Florence. And I know that one, it was very unique to me. It's like only 5 ingredients, a black pepper sauce. But I heard in Florence, they put a green sauce on top of that sometimes. Now, I thought it was made, I was thinking, it's probably like a salsa verde made from like parsley, maybe spinach. Everybody thinks spinach when they think of Florence, Italy. It was like, you're like, oh, chicken Florentine, which I heard is not even a dish from Florence. But going back to your thing, I'm going to investigate it now.
It sounded really good.
I'm just wondering if that sauce is what they were putting on the poposo and not what I was thinking.
It might be.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little bit of research on it, and I found I can't even remember exactly what I found, but I wanted to ask you because I thought that maybe if you didn't know what it was, maybe it's something that you would like to look into more and maybe try and recreate the recipe.
I definitely will look into it. You know, that's the thing, like all the food here, everywhere here, it's all the same. It's really like there's just a little bit variations on it. We do have this place called Pietro's that's near where we live. That is that supposed to be Tuscan food?
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but it's the reason all the food's the same is because of everybody who immigrated here was just from southern Italy. And then, you know, that's the food that took off. So every place pretty much tries to duplicate the menu of the other place. And dishes like what you described, I've been to so many restaurants. I've never come across that. What you're describing is making me think of like a Mexican tomatillo sauce, right?
Yeah.
But I know they're not using tomatillos in Italy.
Right. They're using green tomatoes.
Yeah.
But are they unripe tomatoes, like that are pulled off the vine, or are they, or are they like a green variety?
A ripe green tomato.
Yeah, maybe like a heirloom type that's green.
It's a good question. It might be the case
because I feel like green tomatoes here, as we have them in the U.S., like that you would use to make fried green tomatoes, are just unripe tomatoes.
That's right.
And I don't know how good they would be in a sauce.
Well, Jane, we're going to check it out and we'll report back soon.
Thank you, Jane, for that, because we love to get suggestions from the folks that listen to us or watch our videos, because we kind of see it as a challenge.
100%. Leave your questions and comments to podcast@sipandfeast.com. We will see you next time.